This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, the Prime Minister announces key positions on the Disaster Authority Board. Plus, we get a status report on the cleanup process in the Sandbank, and one popular Abaco business relocates to Nassau.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight, the Bahamas Disaster Reconstruction Authority is beginning to take structure as the Prime Minister announced several key positions within the authority today. During a news conference, he revealed that Senate President Kay Forbes Smith will step down to head up that authority.
I wish to announce that Mr. John Michael Clark will serve as chairman of the new authority, and that Mr. Algernon Cargill will serve as vice chairman. I thank both of them for agreeing to serve in these capacities and for their work in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. The Act also provides for a managing director, and I am pleased that Mrs. Kay Forbes Smith has agreed to serve in this capacity.
Now, as a result of her new appointment, Senator Forbes Smith will demit office, making room for the appointment of a new senator. Dr. Min is also revealing that Lisa Bostock Dean, the daughter of Dame Janet and Henry Bostock, will be sworn in at Government House on Monday at 11 a.m.
We have looked at quite a number of individuals. We've done due diligence, both men and women, and Lisa obviously came out top. Very intelligent individual, lawyer, understands politics, understands debate, interested in our country, wants to serve, and I think she will do an excellent job moving forward. She would help to build the Bahamas that we and our future generation want to see. So I think she's an excellent choice.
The Prime Minister also giving some insight today on just how the Bahamas National Recovery and Reconstruction Trust Fund will operate. The government has committed $10 million for the reconstruction and rebuilding of homes. The trust fund will provide vulnerable residents with up to $10,000 in grant money per household to assist families with building supplies, labor, or some combination of both, based on assessments of inspectors from the Ministry of Works.
Once the inspector submits that information to the trust fund grouping, then they would make a determination as to whether or not that is just and should be followed. In other words, there will be specific criteria. The criteria may be, for example, if an individual has 3 children, if the individual has disabled individuals living with them, if the individual a single parent. So they ask, you look at the individual's income, be it single income or combined income. So there will be specific criteria. So it's not essential for me to know your name or whatever.
Dr. Min made it clear that the monies will not be paid directly to the individuals themselves, but rather to the contractors or vendors.
$10,000, both you and I know that if our homes are destroyed and government or anybody give you $10,000 cannot build any home. The tendency, as we've seen before with education, etc., the tendency would be to take that $10,000 and go shopping, go on a cruise, or buy whatever you want. A policy will be enacted so that once an individual has commenced the construction of their home, once they reach a certain level of progression, then they would receive the $10,000, which goes directly into the home, not to Miami or to the cruise industry.
And to ensure transparency, Dr. Min says the Minister of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction will give reports every 3 months as to the status of the fund. He insists the trust fund will be independent and non-political. Well, the nearly $500 million the government intends to borrow to help with Hurricane Dorian recovery efforts must be spent wisely. That according to a leading banker who said if the funds are spent properly, it will have a major impact on those islands' economy. Jillian Gray reports.
As the government prepares to borrow $507.9 million to offset the costs related to Hurricane Dorian, Chief Financial Officer of Fidelity, Gowan Bowe, said that money must be spent wisely, adding that the funds will have its greatest impact only if the government develops a strategic plan with meaningful and measurable milestones.
It is more important that we spend smartly as opposed to simply spending. And, spending $1 million in the right way could have the impact of 10. Spending $10 million in the wrong way would have the impact of 1. And that is something not to be overlooked. That when we talk about the private sector and public sector, it's not about throwing money on the ground. It is about deploying money in a mechanism and in a manner that will allow it to have the greatest multiplier effect and reproductive strategy.
Those borrowed funds will go towards rebuilding infrastructure, the social costs related to recovery efforts, and investments into small business. Bowe said government must ensure the money is directed toward new opportunities.
A business that may have had a 10,000 square foot warehouse may only have a 2,000 foot storefront for the next few months. And they may be working on manual sales as opposed to their automated systems being up. But as they get economic activity, a business that can make those sales can employ people. Those employed persons can start buying materials for their own homes. Those persons that are spending in terms of buying materials then can employ people. So the multiplier effect that goes through.
He added that while the IDB is predicting an economic slowdown, a recession is preventable. Bowe suggested the key is to distribute those funds appropriately.
When we talk about the other costs that you would have in terms of debris removal, again, it is saying, well, how do I ensure that this is distributed in a manner that allows persons on the ground to, as quickly as possible, recover. We have to be very careful about being seen that what government is going to do for persons as opposed to what government needs to spend as it relates to restoring its own infrastructure, its own operations, and how they use that expenditure to have the greatest impact.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
Abaco Shantytown cleanups are still underway. Our Jared Higgs has the latest from the Sandbanks Shantytown cleanup efforts.
Now, Andrew, as you know, government ordered all 4 shantytowns on Abaco to be cleaned up and absolutely cleared out. One of those shantytowns is the Sandbanks. The supervisor in charge of that cleanup is Livingston Wilson. Mr. Wilson, how has the cleanup been going? I can see this whole area looks quite clear right now.
Yeah, well, we started on the 4th of October, and it was all a mess. Everything was laying down, and we had to go through and separate all the materials, which is clothing, bedding, electronics, gas tanks, plastics, everything, and stockpile them because they didn't want everything just jammed together. So we took about a month to do that, and then we started with the excavator moving the stuff together in piles. Okay, and we have this whole area stockpiled with the different materials, but now as you see, we've cleared them. They're at the dump site, and this is the final stages. Another 10 days, and we should be finished with this cleanup,
Were you guys mindful during the cleanup of recovering bodies? Did you guys recover any bodies out there?
No, I think the people from this area went in the churches. This one here, and there's another church down there, so there was no bodies in the area here. Yeah, just a lot of material, but the people were mindful and they went, so they saved lives.
That's absolutely fantastic. How long do you expect until you guys are finished cleaning up this area?
Week and a half. We should be finished by the 4th or 5th of November. Complete. The only thing we may have is like the front line to come back and take the trees out to make it a lot, beautify the place. That's about it.
Thank you so much. That was Livingston Wilson. He's a supervisor in charge of the Sandbanks Shantytown cleanup. All the shantytowns in Abaco, government has ordered that they be cleared out, absolutely cleaned out and cleared out. Government has also said that it's going to acquire the shantytown land in a hope that they can prevent people from building on them in the future. Reporting for Our News from the Sandbanks, a former Sandbank shantytown in Abaco, I'm Jared Higgs.
Many of the businesses, tourist spots, and Abaco favorites are gone, some of them for good. But there is one popular spot that has reopened its doors here in New Providence, bringing with it the promise of a fresh start for its employees. Our Jerome Sawyer brings us a story tonight.
Kaylor Sims used to wait tables at Mango's restaurant in Marsh Harbor. Hurricane Dorian left her with no home or job. That is until the restaurant owners decided to reopen in Nassau.
It's really bad, so we had no other choice but to evacuate and move here. So that's where I am now.
With no homes, restaurant, or income, or even a place to reopen on the island, co-owners Clement Clark and Kenya Agaro made a decision to relocate the iconic restaurant from Abaco to the Marley Resort on West Bay Street, hiring most of the staff like Sims.
After everybody was relocated here in Nassau, me and my partner, we decided to open up our restaurant here in Nassau. Rather than us sitting down idle, we have a gift, we have potential, we are business savvy.
They were determined to reopen.
We spent one whole day from 12 midday to 12 midnight just driving around trying to find a location. So that's how desperate we are and passionate we are into what we do.
While patrons get to experience the great food and hospitality, for these Abaconians, it's also an opportunity to help their employees facing their own post-storm battles.
We have about 5 that we had from Marsh Harbor, Mango's in Marsh Harbor, and we kept some of the Mali staff. We kept about 5 of them as well. So we're basically more like a family-bound restaurant.
And among that family is Sims, who is grateful for the chance to start over.
Well, of course, I was excited. I still am. But, Abaco is my home. But I'm here now at Mango's, and I'm really excited and happy that I get to work with my co-workers and my family again.
With such a long way to go in the recovery, Sims and a few of her co-workers are able to at least earn a living as they begin restarting their lives, destroyed during those horrible days, early September in Abaco. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jerome Sawyer.
Well, still ahead tonight, a Jamaican QC calls for improvements to the way investigations are conducted in the country. And a popular unionist prepares to challenge for the top spot of a major trade union. Those stories and more when Our News, the Weekend Edition, returns.